Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Future TV. These are today's headlines. The Lebanese army deploys heavily across Tripoli and arrests one of the suspects involved in last night's hospital shootout. The public sector stages a nationwide strike near the Babda Palace as the cabinet meets over the adoption of the new wage scale. And Barack Obama is in the West Bank on the second leg of his Mid-East tour, but has little to offer the Palestinians regarding the peace process. We begin in Tripoli, where the army is deployed in force across the city and has arrested one of the suspects involved in yesterday's shooting. Jihad Dandashi is suspected of opening fire on a soldier inside the government hospital in the northern city, injuring 3 people. The shootout later expanded into an exchange of fire between the residents of rival neighborhoods Jabal Mohsen and Bab el-Tabbani. As evening fell, a sniper shot dead 1 person, and grenade explosions and gunfire were reported in Syria Street, which divides the 2 areas. Also, the head of the Alawites, Sheikh Asad al-Asi, said in a press conference that his sect backs the army on condition that it protects the nation and all of Lebanon's confessions. The Syndicate Coordination Committee has staged a nationwide protest to press the cabinet to refer the new wage scale to the parliament. On the 5th week of strike, SCC head Hanna Gharib is calling on President Michel Sleiman and the government to act responsibly. He told protesters gathered near the Babda Palace to remain united, strong and not to give in. Flights at the Rafiq Hariri International Airport were halted for 4 hours after staff joined air traffic controllers in their strike. A total of 25 scheduled arriving and departing flights were affected by the strike. Traffic at the airport is now back to normal after the strike ended at 2 p.m. And the cabinet is likely to approve the draft law on the long-awaited salary scale during a key session currently taking place at the Babda Palace. Another heated debate that is expected is that of the parliamentary elections this June. Ministers will discuss the legality of the establishment of the authority that will supervise the elections. President Sleiman argues that the body should be established in line with the constitutional deadline, given that rival parties have so far failed to agree on a new electoral draft law. Syria has released a Lebanese Salafist who had been seized in an ambush by Syrian regime troops in the border town of Tel Kelach last year. Hassan Srour was handed to Lebanon's General Security. His release comes as a result of negotiations between Major General Abbas Ibrahim and Syrian authorities. Srour was among a group of fighters who infiltrated Tel Kelach last November to fight alongside the rebels. Ahead of his transfer to Lebanon, he told Syrian TV that Salafist cleric Sheikh al-Shahal has asked them to head to Syria to fight regime troops. Al-Shahal has denied the accusations, saying Damascus had forced him to make such a claim. The army has deployed heavily along the volatile Lebanese-Syrian border near the Bekaa town of Al-Ka. It is not clear if any arrests have been made. This comes a few days after the Syrian Foreign Ministry warned Beirut that it might target armed groups operating on Lebanese soil if Lebanon takes no action to stop them from entering Syria. On Monday, Syria has conducted an airstrike outside the Bekaa town of Harsil. President Sleiman condemned the strike as unacceptable and asked Foreign Minister Adnan Mansour to send a message of protest to Syria to prevent the recurrence of such operations. The Syrian regime has denied responsibility for the attacks. And for his part, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon expressed grave concern that the fighting will spill over the border. He said the raids are a violation of Lebanon's sovereignty and called on Syrian forces to respect its territorial integrity. There have been multiple fatal clashes along the Syria-Lebanon border since the start of the Syrian conflict. Now, on a lighter note, on the occasion of Mother's Day, former Prime Minister Saad Hariri speaks out for the right of mothers to grant nationality to their children. He also said that women should be given full protection, mainly by issuing an anti-domestic violence law as soon as possible. Hariri gave a note of support to Syrian mothers, saying that they are sacrificing themselves for the freedom and dignity of all Syrians and for their right to live in democracy. Hariri also addressed all mothers in Palestine who are waiting for their sons and daughters to be released from Israeli prisons. US President Barack Obama continues the first foreign trip of his second term, flying into Ramallah to meet with his Palestinian counterpart Mahmoud Abbas. Even though the reception was warm, Obama brings nothing new with him, no relaunch peace process or anything of substance to offer the Palestinian people. In their opinion, he did not put enough pressure on Israel to stop building settlements on land seized from them in 1967 and occupied ever since. Gaza is not on Obama's schedule, and militants there fired a couple of missiles into Israel this morning in a show of defiance. And the US president kicked off his visit yesterday in Jerusalem, where he held a joint press conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on a number of issues such as the peace process, Iran and Syria.
Israel remains fully committed to peace and to the solution of two states for two peoples. We extend our hands in peace and in friendship to the Palestinian people. I hope that your visit, along with the visit of the Secretary of State Kerry, will help us turn a page in our relations with the Palestinians. Let us sit down at the negotiating table. Let us put aside all preconditions. Let us work together to achieve the historic compromise that will end our conflict once and for all. If Iran decides to go for a nuclear weapon, that is to actually manufacture the weapon, then it will take them about a year.
We prefer to resolve this diplomatically, and there's still time to do so. Iran's leaders must understand, however, that they have to meet their international obligations. And meanwhile, the international community will continue to increase the pressure on the Iranian government. The United States will continue to consult closely with Israel on next steps, and I will repeat, all options are on the table. Assad has lost his legitimacy to lead by attacking the Syrian people with almost every conventional weapon in his arsenal, including Scud missiles. And we have been clear that the use of chemical weapons against the Syrian people would be a serious and tragic mistake.
And still regarding this issue, Britain, France and the United States have called for a United Nations inquiry into claims by the Syrian government and the opposition of chemical weapons attacks. Each side is accusing the other of using such weapons, but Russia, Syria's last major ally, insists only the regime's allegations should be investigated.
We reminded the Syrian government of its responsibilities under international law, and we received various assurances that there is no intention from the Syrian government to resort to the use of chemical weapons if they do exist. It has been on our radar all along because there is an alleged presence of chemical weapons in Syria. We have expressed very clearly and openly our concern that they may be taken hold of by the opposition, or the opposition, various armed opposition groups, may manufacture something in order to sort of demonstrate a chemical weapons attack, because some of our international colleagues have been saying very loudly that that would be a game changer. And of course, one would not be surprised if some members of armed opposition groups would want the game to change.
The facts need to be clarified. But I think on that point it is worth just remembering how many distortions and falsehoods we have seen from the Syrian regime over the last 2 years. Also remembering that it is the Syrian regime which has stockpiles of chemical weapons and materials in Syria, and who are responsible under Security Council resolutions to ensure that those are not proliferated. What we said to our colleagues on the Security Council this afternoon was that we would be asking the Secretary-General to conduct such an investigation, swift, thorough and impartial, of any reports of use of chemical weapons.
I am not aware of the existence of a second attack or use of chemical weapons within the Syrian territory. I think this was set up. I mean, this allegation regarding the second incident where chemical weapons were used allegedly. These allegations was set up on purpose to torpedo the investigation on the real use of chemical weapons which took place in Aleppo yesterday.
Coming up next, Cubans enter a new era in buying and selling real estate. Stay with us for more. Welcome back. Negotiations between world powers and Iran over its nuclear program issue no breakthrough in Istanbul, but Russia's deputy foreign minister told reporters progress has been made. He said the two sides still have a lot of efforts to put in before a fifth round of higher-level political discussions in Almaty on April 5th. The European Union said the world powers gave Tehran fresh details on a proposed deal aimed at ending international concern over its nuclear drive. They offered Iran an easing of non-oil or financial sanctions in exchange for concession over Iran's sensitive uranium enrichment operations. A photograph of a 12-year-old boy who lost both his arms in the bombing of Iraq became the iconic image of the brutality of the war. Ali Abbas was also badly burned after a U.S. missile hit his Baghdad house, killing his parents and his brother 10 years ago. After medical treatment and rehabilitation therapy in the UK, he made his life in London with the help of a charity. The last decade has seen him grow from a scared little boy to a confident 22-year-old young man, but the haunting memories of that horrific night are never far away. Now living in London, Ali gives his verdict on the invasion.
I'm always against the war, so I don't think it was really the right thing, because you can see my situation, I lost all my family, so I'd rather be, with my arms and my parents, with Saddam, than to not lose all my family. I mean, a lot of people, get destroyed, and I wish that it didn't happen. I'm always trying to look forward. I don't want to think of the past. I don't want to think of that too much, because when I keep thinking of that, I always get emotional and sometimes get angry. So I just don't like to think of it. What happened has happened. I can't change anything. And I'm looking forward, and hopefully everything will be good.
Now for some other news from around the world. Jailed Kurdish rebel leader Abdullah Öcalan issues a long-awaited ceasefire declaration, a major step towards ending a 30-year conflict which claimed thousands of lives in Turkey. The ceasefire, which coincides with the Kurdish New Year, or Nowruz, also calls for the withdrawal of PKK from bases in northern Iraq. The declaration took place in the Kurdish majority city of Diyarbakir, where hundreds of thousands gathered for celebrations. North Korea threatens to attack U.S. military bases in Japan in response to Washington's use of nuclear-armed bombers in joint military drills with South Korea. The threat comes a day after Pyongyang condemned the B-52 flights as an unpardonable provocation. The Pentagon confirmed that planes had indeed flown over South Korea as part of the annual joint exercises, but the North insists are a rehearsal for provocation. South Korea says an investigation shows a Chinese internet address is the source of a cyber attack on one of the companies shut down by computer crashes. Experts say hackers often launch attacks via computers in other countries in an attempt to keep their identities from being exposed. Regulators have distributed vaccine software to government offices, banks, hospitals and other institutions to prevent more outages. Authorities in Japan say an outage at the Fukushima power station may have been caused by a rat. Investigators at the nuclear plant believe the rodent may be responsible for short-circuiting a switchboard, triggering a power cut. It took engineers over 30 hours to repair the damage. The outage on Monday caused the cooling systems for spent fuel rods to shut down at 3 reactors, even though the cooling of the reactors themselves were not affected. An investigation has been launched in Chile after thousands of dead prawns washed up on a beach in Kernel City. Experts are investigating if a change in temperature or oxygen levels is the cause for the disaster, which also caused hundreds of crabs to be washed ashore. Local fishermen from the city blamed nearby power stations that use seawater as a cooling agent. Others indicated it could have been caused by the El Niño phenomenon, which warms the waters of the Pacific Ocean. And finally, handwritten signs and amateur photographs of houses for sale are popping up all over Havana these days as Cubans enter a new era of buying and selling real estate. Cubans have been flocking to sell their homes at informal housing markets since the Cuban government's decree in November 2011, allowing citizens to buy and sell homes for the very first time since the revolution. Previously, Cubans could only swap their houses. Today, more than 100,000 properties are posted for sale on internet sites and even on state television. The Cuban government has led the groundwork for allowing foreigners to buy property on the island, but only in resort developments for which approval has been pending for years. Opening the real estate market to foreign investors could generate billions of dollars into Cuba's cash-strapped economy. So now you can buy a house in Cuba. There you go. And this marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. The Lebanese army deploys heavily across Tripoli and arrests one of the suspects involved in last night's hospital shootout. The public sector stages a nationwide strike near the Babda Palace as the cabinet meets over the adoption of the new wage scale. And Barack Obama is in the West Bank on the second leg of his Mid-East tour, but has little to offer the Palestinians regarding the peace process. Thank you for watching Future TV. I'm Nurhal in Beirut. Join us again tomorrow at the same time for your latest news from Lebanon and the world. Goodbye.
14 أذار حتى نحقق الحرية التي ننشدها جميعا.